In a quiet village nestled between misty mountains and sprawling green fields, lived a little boy named Sam. The village was small, its cobblestone streets winding between quaint houses with thatched roofs and tiny gardens blooming with wildflowers. The villagers led simple lives, working in the fields, tending to their animals, and gathering at the village square to share news and gossip. Life in the village moved slowly, and change was something that rarely knocked on their doors. Sam was different from the other children. While the village boys and girls played games in the meadows, climbed trees, and helped their parents with chores, Sam found solace in solitude. He had an insatiable curiosity that set him apart, a mind constantly buzzing with questions about how things worked and why they were the way they were. His parents, simple farmers, often found him taking apart old tools and fiddling with scraps, a habit that worried them at times. They didn't understand his fascination with gears, levers, and springs. Sam's fascination with invention began when he was just 5 years old. He had watched an old traveling merchant fix a broken cartwheel with a peculiar set of tools. The way the man effortlessly solved the problem with a few twists and turns had sparked something within Sam. From that day on, he began collecting whatever odds and ends he could find: rusty nails, bits of wood, old metal pieces, and anything that looked remotely useful. He stored them in a secret nook behind his house, which he called his workshop. It was nothing more than a dusty corner with a small workbench he had fashioned from discarded planks. But to Sam, it was a magical place where anything felt possible. The villagers, however, didn't see the magic. They saw a strange boy who wasted time tinkering with trash. They would whisper as he walked by, sometimes loud enough for him to hear. "That boy's got his head in the clouds," they'd say. "No use dreaming about things that'll never be." Others would chuckle and shake their heads, thinking he was foolish for spending his days with scraps instead of learning the skills that would one day feed his family. But Sam paid no heed to their words. He spent countless hours in his workshop, teaching himself to shape metal, carve wood, and piece together whatever his imagination conjured. As he grew older, Sam's ideas became more ambitious. He dreamed of machines that could make farming easier, of gadgets that could light up the village at night, and of contraptions that could turn the wind and river into power. His sketches, though crude, filled every available surface in his little workshop, and his hands became calloused from the constant work. Despite the bruises, cuts, and the occasional failure, he never gave up. One evening, after a particularly disheartening day where an attempt to build a wind-powered water pump ended in disaster, Sam sat alone on the grassy hill that overlooked the village. His clothes were smeared with oil, and his hands were stained black. He stared at the sky, watching the last of the day's light fade behind the mountains. It was in moments like these that doubt would creep in, whispering in his ear, echoing the words of the villagers. "What's the point of all this?" But then, Sam would look at his hands, rough and scarred, and remember why he started. He was determined to change things, not just for himself, but for the entire village. He wanted to prove that even the smallest person, with enough grit and imagination, could make a difference. One day, while scavenging near the river, Sam stumbled upon something that would change everything. A pile of old, abandoned machinery parts washed ashore. The pieces were rusted and tangled, but to Sam, they were a treasure trove of possibilities. He spent days dragging the heavy parts back to his workshop, working late into the night by the light of a single candle. The sound of clinking metal and the smell of burning solder filled the air. Sam's hands moved with a newfound fervor, as if the pieces themselves whispered the secrets of their former lives. It was as if fate had given him the last piece of a puzzle he had been trying to solve for years. Months passed, and Sam's project took shape. It was a large, peculiar contraption with a web of gears, pipes, and levers, unlike anything the village had ever seen. He toiled day and night, barely pausing to eat or sleep. The villagers continued to mock him, now more vocal than ever. "He's lost his mind." Some exclaimed, "Just look at that pile of junk he's built." But Sam didn't mind. He was on the verge of something big, something that felt right. He could sense it in every bolt he tightened and every gear he carefully aligned. The day of the unveiling came sooner than expected. Word had spread that Sam was finally going to reveal his mysterious invention, and despite their doubts, the villagers were curious. They gathered in the square, watching as Sam rolled his contraption forward. It was an odd sight, a hulking machine of twisting metal, painted in dull grays and browns, with a large wheel at its center and a series of tubes extending outward like the arms of a giant octopus. Sam stood before the crowd, his heart pounding. He could see the skepticism in their eyes, the smirks and the whispers. But this time, he felt no fear, only a fierce determination. He took a deep breath and began to explain, his voice steady and clear. "This machine," he said, pointing to the central wheel, "will change everything. It's a multi-purpose tool that can pump water, grind grain, and even generate light." His words hung in the air, met with silence and blank stares. But Sam continued, undeterred. He showed them how the gears worked, how the water could be drawn from the river, how the grinding stones could turn wheat into flour with just the pull of a lever. Still, the villagers seemed unimpressed. Sam's heart sank, but he wasn't done yet. He pulled one final lever, and with a loud whirring sound, the machine sprang to life. The central wheel began to spin, the pipes hummed, and water flowed into the troughs. Grain poured into the grinding stones, and moments later, fine powdery flour spilled out the other end. But the most astounding moment came when, as dusk fell, the machine's final function was revealed. A soft, warm light emanated from its center, illuminating the square with a glow unlike any candle or lantern the villagers had ever seen. The villagers gasped. The square, usually dimly lit by flickering candles at this hour, was bathed in light. Faces that had been filled with doubt now reflected awe and wonder. They could see the details of each other's expressions, the colors of their clothes, and even the intricate patterns of the cobblestones under their feet. It was as if the night itself had been pushed back by Sam's invention. In that moment, the entire village realized the significance of what Sam had done. His contraption wasn't just a machine, it was hope made tangible. It promised easier lives, more food, and light in the darkness, both literally and metaphorically. It was proof that something new and wondrous could emerge from even the most unassuming corners of their world. They no longer saw a strange boy with wild ideas. They saw an innovator, someone who dared to dream beyond the confines of their small village life. As days turned into weeks, Sam's machine transformed the village. The water pump made irrigation easier, allowing crops to flourish even during dry spells. The grain grinder saved hours of labor, giving families more time to spend together. And the light, oh the light, it became the heart of the village, where people would gather in the evenings to tell stories, share meals, and celebrate their community. The whispers and scoffs faded, replaced by admiration and gratitude. Sam was no longer the boy with his head in the clouds. He was the young inventor who had changed their way of life forever. Sam's parents, who had once worried about his strange hobbies, now beamed with pride. They saw in their son something they hadn't before, a quiet, unshakable courage. They watched as villagers came to him for advice, asking how they could improve their own tools, or whether he could help fix something that had long been broken. Sam, always humble, continued to work in his workshop, creating new devices, fixing what was broken, and teaching others the value of persistence and creativity. And so, the village thrived, not because of some grand fortune or divine intervention, but because of a little boy who refused to give up on his dreams. Sam's journey had been filled with obstacles, doubt, and the constant murmur of those who didn't believe. But he had proven that with effort, persistence, and a little bit of imagination, even the most impossible dreams could be brought to life. The village, once quiet and resistant to change, had become a place of innovation and hope, all because one boy dared to see the world not as it was, but as it could be. The mountains remained misty, the fields green, and the cobblestones worn, but the village was forever changed. And in his small workshop, Sam continued to build, to dream, and to inspire, one invention at a time.